CSS image. Images are very important part of any web page. Though it is not recommended to include lots of image, but it is still important to use good images whenever it is required. The reason we said it's not recommended to use lot of image in your web page is because of the accessing time. You know, there are some sites that whenever you want to visit them, it always takes time before they finish loading. The reason is because of the programmer, the web developer of that particular web page, the web designer of that particular web page use a lot of image. So it always takes time. You know, whenever you visit a site, the first thing, by the time you discover that the page is loading, the first thing that the page will do is going to download all the image that you want to use at that particular time. To download them. You may not see it's downloading, it may not tell you that it's downloading, but it will first download them before it will load them. So if you now use a lot of image, before the time that it will take for it to finish downloading all the image, as in the time it's going to take, it will take a lot of time before it's finished downloading all the image. So that is why it's not good for you to use a lot of image. You look at this site, for example, now you discover that they did not use a lot of images. Like they just use this is an image. So this kind of web page, it will be very fast in loading. So just make sure that whenever you are creating a web page, make sure you do not use a lot of images. But it's good for you to use image because it makes your web page more beautiful. So CSS plays a good role to control image display. So you can set following image property using CSS. The border property is used to set the width of an image border. So to set the width of an image border, you make use of the border property. The height property is used to set the height of an image. The width property is used to set the width of an image. Remember, the previous chapter, we talked about the background image. But this time around, we are talking about inserting the image to your web page. This is not a background image, but this is just using an image in your web page. Example is this. Look at this Ewebtutor page right now. When you go to our home page in Ewebtutor, you will discover that we make use of some images. Let me go there. So all these ones that you are viewing right now is an example of what? An image. So this is not a background image, but I want an image to appear on my site. That's why I used what? I insert the image. This is just ordinary image, not a background. This image does not act like a background to this web page. So it's just ordinary image. The same thing appears to this. This is also an image. So this one that you are seeing right now is also an image. So that's what we'll talk about, the CSS image. And the last one is the most opacity property. It's used to set the opacity of an image. So let's start with the image border property. The border property of an image is used to set the width of an image property, the image border. This property can have a value in length or in inches or in percentage. The width of 0 pixel means no border. Let's do an example. Let's use to insert an image in let's first open a new file. Let's name the name of the file images.html. That's the name of our file. Normally in HTML, when we are talking about inserting the image, we said the first thing you first do is you first upload your image to your server. That's the first thing. You upload your image to your www directory. The next thing is you use the img src to bring the image out. Img src, we said img does not have the closing tag. So whatever the name of the image, if it's penguins.jpg, whatever the names of that image that you want to use must be inside inside your source. So your source must be the name of the image. So if you save this, since penguins.jpg, since it's already present in our server, by the time we run images.html page, we discover that penguins.html.jpg is going to be shown. And here now we can set the height of penguin.jpg. We can set it to 200. We can set the width. So this is just to jog your memory. So this is just to jog your memory to how we insert image with HTML. But right now we are not trying to insert image using HTML. We are trying to insert image using the what? Using CSS. So there are ways in which you can set your image property. But normally when you want to insert image, you will still use the img source. But all these heights, the width, the most, opacity, the border property, you can set all those with CSS. So let's read an example. So right now, you will discover that we use a style. We want to set the image border property. We want to set the image property. So since the name of the tag we want to use to insert image, we've already told you that before. We've already told you before that whenever you want to create a embedded CSS, you make use of the styles. Make use of the style. Then the style will has a attribute media, which is equals to all. The type, which is equals to what? Text/CSS. And it will has, the last one is the rel, which will have the value of what? Of style sheets. Style sheets. So this is the opening tag of your style, and this is the closing tag of your style. So right now your CSS code will be between here. But note one thing, it's not possible for us to use CSS. Note one thing, it's not possible for us to use CSS to insert an image. We insert an image with what? With the img tag. Because I've told you that whenever you want to create a CSS, you make use of what? The HTML tag as a what? You make use of the HTML tag as a what do you refer to as it? As a selector. So HTML tag represents what? Selector. But right now we have the img source. Right now we said the source will be what? Penguins.jpg. We already have that penguins inside our www directory. If you want to see, maybe it's true that we have penguin. But if you didn't have, you can import any image that you have. You can also change this name to whatever image that you already have on your www directory, or you import your image and the name of that image that you import, you put it as your source. So you go to your www directory. So you see that on my www directory I have penguins.jpg. So it's already there. Penguins.jpg. So right now, even without using my style, let me save this page and refresh it. You will discover that if you save this page and let me go to my website. Let me open my link. So let me open my domain. So what's the name of the file? Is images.jpg. So .html. Can you see these penguins? So these penguins, can you see? This is the code I use. Image source. The name of the image I want to insert is penguins.jpg. So I don't need to explain what img does, because I've already explained to you in HTML. Whenever you want to insert image, you make use of the img source. But right now, I want to set the property width, height, the host opacity. I want to set all this property. The border, I want to set all this property. But before, in HTML, we can also set this property. All we need to do is we just say the image source. When you just use image source, it's going to give you the image. But if you now use the width you can use the width is equals to, in HTML, you use the width is equals to height is equals to, or border is equals to, you can use all these things in HTML. But right now, how is it possible? How do we set all this property with CSS is what we are going to learn right now. Without setting all this property with HTML, because we know that we can set it with HTML by saying width, height, opacity, all those things. We can set it in HTML. But without setting it in HTML, if we want to set this property with CSS, how do we do that? Because right now, what if we have another image that we insert with img src? Are we going to be setting the property, the width, the height, are we going to be writing it again? It's a waste of time. But assuming we've already set the CSS, we've already set the property for our border for image, for our border for image, for our width for image, our height for image, assuming we've already set all those properties for our image, anytime we use img, it will always apply that property to it. So we don't need to be rewriting width, height, border every time we use img. So that is what we are trying to do now, to set the property of img using CSS. So right now the first thing is the opening tag CSS and the closing tag CSS. Style, want to use the embedded style. Style media is equals to all type is equals to text slash CSS. Rel is equals to style sheets. Then the style. So right now, what is our selector? Our selector will be img. So img. Then what is the first property we want to set? We want to set the image border. So we'll just say, what is the syntax name to set the image border? It's ordinary border. We'll say border. We set the border as what? As 25. So right now, when we save this, you will discover that our penguins, this image, right now, is because we have not set the proper property before. That's why you see that the border is not thick. You just see the normal image. But right now that we have set the border property as 25, because img, I've told you that every selector must always be what? HTML syntax. And the syntax to insert image is img. But this img now, we've set a property called border for it to be 25. So let's save this and refresh our web page. You will see that the border thickness of this thing will have increased to what? To, what's that thing? For me, there's an error. Style, media hall. So let me set the border to 0. Yeah. If you refresh now, you discover that there won't be any border. There won't be any border thickness. So for the next example, is the image height property. I can set, look at it now, because I did not set my height for this img now. That is why it's retained the normal height, the default height that the image that I inserted, the default height that it is retaining it. But it's possible I can use my CSS height, image height, to give the height of this particular image, even though the image is as big as this. By the time it shows it on my web page, it's going to give it the height that I want. Even though it's bigger than that height, it's still going to give it the height that I want. So to set the height, then under the border, you can set the height property. So image also has a height property. Then you can say a height of 20 with a height of 200. Okay, let's see how it works. How it works. A height of 200. So can you see now? A height of 200. So the height of this image now, it has changed to 200. Even though the image is very bigger than this, the normal image that I uploaded is very bigger than this, but because I use the height property, I can be able to reduce the height. The same things for the image width. The same thing happens for the image width. So instead of height, you can say, you can make use of width also. So I can set the width, I can say the width equals to 400. I can give it a property of 400. So you see that the width will be bigger than the height. Can you see? The width will be bigger than the height. So that's just about images. So the next thing is the most opacity property. And how do you set this? / opacity property. So you set it in this way. It's another property. I gave it / most opacity property 0.4. Can you see? So / opacity property of an image is used to set the opacity of an image. This property is used to create a transparent image in Mozilla. Internet Explorer make use of the filter. So to create a transparent property of image, so in Mozilla, you make use of the what? The most opacity. Where in Internet Explorer, you make use of the alpha. So the next section is the CSS link. This tutorial will teach you how to set different properties of hyperlinks using CSS. You can set the following property of a hyperlink. Normally, when we are talking about HTML, we've already talked about linking in HTML. But right now, this is just talking about certain properties of link in CSS. How to set the property. Normally, we've talked about some of the property that we can set with even the HTML. Normally, we told you the HTML to write a link is the ahref, ahref. So, but there are a lot of properties that you need to know when you are creating a links, and that property is a link, the visited, the hover, the active. So the link signify the unvisited link. So you can set the properties for the link which signify the unvisited link. So you can set the property that the color of any link that they have not visited. What color should it display? For the visited, any link they have visited, what color should it display? For the over, any link that they have not clicked but they are just putting their mouse on top of it, what color should it specify? So you can specify that. So for the active, signify an element on which the user is currently clicking. I said the link that you are currently clicking is the active is going to talk about that one. So usually these all properties are kept in the header part of your HTML document. Remember, a over must come after a click link and a visited in CSS definition in order to be effective. Also, a active must come after a over in the CSS definition. So this is an example of it. What we're trying to say is that any link that they have visited, we set its color to what? This color code, black. The one that they have visited, we set the color to this. The one that they are just clicked, we've set its color to. So these are just two ways in which you can set various colors. You can see that the tag is A. And I've told you whenever you are creating a link in HTML, you'll make use of the tag A, the element A. So this symbol now, when you use a symbol stroke link, specify the color that is going to display for every link that they have not visited. They have visited. As in they have not visited, rather. So this symbol visited means this color it give it to all the links that they have visited. So like right now, when I go to Ewebtutor, if I click on a particular link now, like now, when I just place my mark here, can you see? If I just place my mouse on all these links, you will see that their color will display. Normally, when I've not clicked on the link, if I've not clicked on the link, the normal color that it will display is what? Is white. So that means that's a what? That's a link. Because I've not clicked on it, it's still an unvisited link. That's a link. But immediately I hover my mouse on it, as if I want to click it, you'll see that the color will change. So that color that you are seeing presently now is the color for what? A over. So once I click on that, before I click on that link, when I'm about to click on it, the color that it shows is what referred to as what? A active. When I'm clicking at the present moment that I'm clicking, the color is active. And after I click, the color that I display, after it I click, the color that link displays is what referred to as the what? A visited. So setting the color of link, I believe I've already explained this. So let's just use this particular example. So this is just open tag of style, and this is the closing tag of style. This is our link. So we create a link. The link text is what? Black link. And once they click on it, to go to this page. So right now, this black link now, we have set, normally we use href to link it to this page that is going to go to. So once they click on it, we expect it to go to this page. But for our linking, this link now, we want to set the property using CSS for this link. That's why we have CSS here. So what this CSS will do is, we only create, what CSS does, this CSS does is what? Let's look at what it does. A link. So that means A is our tag, which is the tag we use here. So we are setting our property. We are setting the property for A. And we have 4 various types of property for A. We have the link, the visited, the over, and the active. So the property of A that we are trying to set right now is for the link. And what is the property? The property is for color. And what value does the color have? The color has property value of black, because this color is black. So right now, by the time we save this page and we refresh it, we will discover that this link will be what? With black, because we have not visited it. But once we visited it, the color is supposed to change. But we have not specified the color that is going to change to. So that's when we'll talk about a visited. But right now, we're only talking about a link. So this link is going to have a color of what? Of black, because we have specified that the link must have the color of black. So this is just about setting properties, setting link property on CSS. So setting color of visited links, I believe by going through these materials, you can do all this yourself. So just go through these materials, understand what we are trying to talk about the linking, the properties of link, and understand how to do it. Even run the code for practice. Each of these code that we have here, just run them for practice, so that you'll be able to understand the picture of about what we are trying to create. So the next thing is the CSS table. This tutorial will teach you how to set different property of an HTML table using CSS. Normally, I've told you about tables. We've talked about tables when we are dealing with HTML. And we've talked about some of the attributes of tables in HTML. But right now, how do we set those properties, like all this border, the border collapse, the border spacing, the caption size, the empty cells? How do we set all these properties using CSS? So the first one we have is a border collapse. We specify whether the browser should control the appearance of adjacent border that touches each other, or whether each cell should maintain its size. The border spacing specifies the width that should appear between table cells. The caption side caption are presented in the caption element by default. These are rendered above the tables in the document. You use the caption side property to control the placement of the table caption. The empty cells specify whether the border should be shown if a cell is empty. The table layout allows browser to speed up layout of a table by using the first width property it comes across for the rest of the column, rather than having to load the whole table before rendering it. So right now, using all this code, I believe when you run all this code, I believe with all this code, you can see what we are trying to talk about one by one. You can translate the code yourself, because you've already understand. Like you see this code now, they make use of class. And that means you see that under your table, there will be full stop in your declaration on the styles. Can you see table.1? That means there is a tag named table that you want to use. Dot represents class. The table will have a class. And what is the name of the class? 1. and there will be a table class 2 also. So the table class 1 has this property, table class 2 has this property. I've taught you about class. So I believe with the knowledge of what you have before, you can run all this code and you see how we define the table property for each of all these codes. So you can go through all these codes now, you run it and you see what we are trying to talk about. So thank you so much.